Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
Entering the house, he heard a noise he knew well but did not expect to hear. The reason he came home early didn't matter, it just happened. His love had died. When he opened the door, there was a fight. "John, do you have any idea who he is?" Her eyes were wide open, and her mouth was covered with her hands. "Do you think I really care about this? How the hell could you do that?" John turned and walked down the hallway, hearing Maggie begging him to stop. "Stop and talk to her." "Leave me alone," John said. He walked out the front door, jumped into his pickup truck, and drove to a nearby liquor store. John parked in the back lot of Walmart and, sipping bourbon straight from the bottle, watched the traffic. His phone started ringing, and he reached over and turned off the ringer, glancing at the screen as the phone vibrated. Maggie was trying to contact him. He ignored it the first 3 times and ignored the messages that came as texts. Finally deciding that he wouldn't rest until he sorted this out, he answered the call. "Hello? John, where are you? Come home so we can talk. We need to end this." "He is dead." "Who is dead?" "Oh, you mean Brett?" "No, he got angry, made a bunch of threats about what he was going to do to you, and left." "Nice to know." "John, I have to go." "Don't call again." "John, where are you?" He disconnected and returned to communicating with the bourbon. When he woke up the next morning, he felt the pain and nausea that come with sleeping in a pickup truck. It never occurred to him to go to the hotel until he was too drunk to drive. In a way, he thought that the hotel bed was too good and that he needed to suffer a little more. He felt like crap. His mouth was dry, and there was a disgusting taste. He needed to drink coffee and take a leak, but not exactly in that order. He looked at his phone and realized it was already 7:30. Grunting from the pain in his neck, he climbed out of the truck, went to Walmart, bought a pair of jeans and a new shirt for work, drove to the office, and changed clothes in the truck. Sitting at his desk, closing the office door, he looked at the phone again. There were 37 messages, 20 emails, and 3 missed calls from Maggie. Bob walked into John's office and waved his hand in front of John's face. "What's happened? Did you drink it or bathe in it? It smells like Maker's Mark 2019. Such a good year." John smiled for the first time. Yesterday was a bad day, and at night, it was even worse. He lowered his head. "What's the matter, buddy?" "Maggie got angry about something. If you show up like this, she'll get even angrier." John looked at Bob. "You've never done the right thing. You never slept with her, did you? You're joking, aren't you? What's the matter, guy? You know that I returned early. I was supposed to return only on Friday, right? She's cheating on me." He threw his head back with a groan of pure agony. "In my house? Oh, you're sure?" He stood in the doorway in shock for a minute or two, and a fight broke out between us. "Holy crap. Someone from the law firm? I don't know who the hell he is. I know I just can't handle it. I used to love her." The pain in his voice was unbearable. "I gave her everything she wanted. I loved her more than I thought possible." "Why?" A single tear slowly rolled down his cheek. "Did you ask her?" "No, I don't want to talk to her. You'll never get answers if you don't do this." "I know. I want to know the answers, but not now. I need to disappear for a while." "Are you leaving? We worked so hard to get this place here. We've been working on it since we left school. Don't give up. I can't afford to run. We'll figure something out. We have time. I'll take the ship this afternoon. I'll call you when I arrive." "John, wait. Where are you going?" "I won't know until I get there. I'll call you. Keep paying me my salary. When you feel like it's unfair, call me, and we'll figure something out. I'll turn on my cell phone if I'm within range. I'll continue to work on projects, just from a boat or something like that. Once I get settled somewhere, I will send you my new direct deposit bank account number as soon as I open it." John gathered the things he thought he would need and walked back to his truck. After a quick stop at the bank, opening a new account, with a book of starter checks in hand and a quick text to Bob, he drove to the marina. The dock sounded hollow as he walked down to his slip. Down deep was a small 33-foot Grady White with a beam of 11 feet 6 inches. The cabin was small but big enough for him. He bought it with an upgraded fuel tank, 560 gallons of gasoline. He drank fuel fast and heavily, but the twin Yamaha 350s were definitely pushing him through the water. He sat back with his glass and looked at the GPS screens, calculating distances, fuel consumption, and provisions. Stops in Virginia Beach, Charleston, Jacksonville, Florida, Cape Canaveral, Fort Lauderdale, and then Nassau. A couple of 100 miles a day, and he'd be there in a week, or if he were lucky, in 2. If he went east, he'd have to ride it out for a couple of days, but if he went further north, he wouldn't. Planning distracted him from the pain. He just needed to get out of there quickly. For a moment, he was overcome with fear, thinking he might be found before he left. One day, no one would find him at sea. He knew the coming week would be painful. The only thing he could do as he rode down was think. He thought about the danger of making such a journey alone, but decided that he didn't really care. It wouldn't be the worst way, and maybe even the worst, he just didn't care. It couldn't hurt more than it did right now. As if on cue, his phone rang. He put it to voicemail and soon heard a ping indicating he had received another message. He read the last message, "You should talk to me, not just leave us." His anger went from being relatively calm because it wasn't at the forefront of his mind to being furious in an instant. Don't leave us. Did she think about this when she decided to change? Didn't she leave when she slept with him? He double-clicked her number, and the phone rang. John, where are you? Where have you gone? I've been terribly worried about you all night and now all day. Where are you? It doesn't matter. I need answers. John, just come home, and we can talk. Please don't leave us. No need. You already did it. Do you remember we had such an event at school? Do you remember what we decided then? It was a mistake. I think you were the one showing your colors. I should have listened to my gut then. Instead, I listened to my heart, and guess what? Again, Maggie. John went on another trip. Maggie sat at the table and looked at the photograph of John in a beautiful gold frame that stood on her dresser. He was wearing a t-shirt and holding a large fish with the most wonderful smile on his face. Marlin. The muscles in his arms stood out, not huge but strong like ropes under the skin. He was always fishing or traveling for work. She went with him a few times, but he always went to places like Mountain Home, Arkansas, or Monroeville, Alabama. She went with him when he went to Mexico, thinking she would sunbathe at the hotel while he worked, but he went to some oil fields 40 miles north of Guatemala. She was unhappy the whole time. That was the last time she traveled with him. She knew she had been a bore back then, grumbling while he was in the oil fields helping with equipment that was doing something to the drilling fluids. He returned every day exhausted from the 40 degrees heat, and she forced him to take her to parties he didn't want her to attend. But she needed something to occupy her mind. She went to law school for a couple of years, got her degree but didn't want to study hard enough to become a lawyer, so she took a job as a paralegal. The lawyers were so exciting, big cases, lawsuits, documents piling up on their desks, and phones constantly ringing. The environment was so charged with energy that she found it exciting. She had been enjoying this energy for 10 years. She was called into the office of one of the junior partners. She was well built, she worked hard at it and knew how to stick it out. She knew that her appearance and personality would give her interesting opportunities and a good job, not that she did anything, but the hint was enough. Being a little frosted candy with a brain was a definite advantage. Maggie, we have an interesting case that is moving quickly, a land deal with a land use permit that requires city approval. I need someone dedicated and willing to work overtime. We have to get ready for the City Planning Commission meeting. Is this interesting to you? She sat down on the sofa and watched as his eyes lingered. Sounds interesting, but where is it? Not far from Washington, in Maryland. The zoning is correct, so we don't have to fight the county, just the city for development permits. This will take quite a lot of time. I could use your help. Interesting. Of course, it sounds fun. She really didn't understand how she got from there to here. They sat in the office until late for several weeks and then decided to have dinner first in a cafe, then in good restaurants, and then in clubs. The dancing was fun, a nice break. John was out of town again Monday through Thursday and was scheduled to return home Friday afternoon. She already knew that dancing wouldn't pass the marriage test. What harm, she thought? John would never know. John checked the weather. It was calm enough to get to Virginia Beach. Allowing him to leave, if he refueled there, he could make it to Charleston on the next leg of his trip and avoid Oregon Inlet in North Carolina. Eating on board after a quick trip to the grocery store, with one last glance at his phone, he lowered the engines, pulled the ropes on board, and pulled out of his slip. Looking back at his truck, he realized that he loved it and felt like he was leaving an old friend behind. It wasn't the only friendship he mourned. As he pulled out of the dock, pushing the throttle forward, he set the autopilot to guide him down the Chesapeake. Once he tied the boat to the guest dock, he pulled out his phone, 54 texts, 30 emails, and 5 more calls from Maggie. He decided he had to deal with this. "John, where are you? You must listen to me. This means nothing. You are, of course, talking about our marriage?" It was not a question. No, it was just intimacy. It didn't mean anything. It meant that you were lying, that I couldn't trust you, and it meant that our marriage was over. When did it start? "John, please come home. We need to talk. I won't return home. I'm coming to you." "Where are you?" "Far away. You won't find me." "Have you left the city?" "How?" "Where?" "Go away. You tore my heart out. I can't stand the thought of you. I'll never get rid of the vision. Don't call me. I'm dead to you. Live your life and do what you want." I left. "John, please, please talk to me. Please don't leave. God, please. Bye, Maggie. Have a happy life." It was bad. Oh God, what she did. "Brett, no. We can't do this. It will never happen again. Come on, Maggie, don't tell me you didn't like it." "Shut up, Brett. It won't happen again. Maggie, now that we've done this, and don't forget that you agreed willingly, I don't know how I can work with you. You understand how this affects your work, right? What if I tell my partners that I can't work with you? Brett, what do you need for this? Am I locked in forever? I'll leave first. I don't love you. I love my husband. He'll kill me and you if he ever finds out. Please don't take my husband from me. Please." Now she was crying openly. "I'll tell you what, one more trip, and then I'll go back to the office and think about it. If I decide I need it, I'll let you know. Let's see what happens." "John, what did I do? Why wasn't I good enough? I loved her so much that I would do anything for her. What does he have that I don't?" A hurricane was coming from the south and was expected to hit the coastal waters sometime tonight. He decided it was better to lie there and hang out than to risk something going wrong and having to wait out the storm in a dead boat with 7-foot seas. Everything that went wrong. He jumped off the boat and headed to the provision store, where he bought a soft folding chair with Marlin engraved on the back. He placed it in the cockpit, sat down, and watched the people go by. Some smiled at him, some simply walked by, and some greeted him with a hesitant wave. He couldn't get the image of his wife's lover out of his head. His love story with Maggie flashed through his mind, a movie he really didn't want to watch, but it started anyway. Image after image flashed like a verse of a song where you can only remember 2 or 3 lines, but they just keep playing over and over again in your head, threatening to rip out his heart again. He remembered the first time he saw her, laughing in the student center. They had a small food bar, and she sat a few tables away. "No way, John. She's out of your league," he thought. He had to walk past her to get out. He looked at her, and she looked at him. Hello. Hello. Sweet and bright. She's so damn cute, he thought. He wasn't bright, but not creepy either. I hope she remembers me. In an hour, she must get this often. He knew he would remember her for a long time. A few nights later, he stood at the door of the student dormitory as people came and went. "Hi, I saw you the other day at the Seagull's Nest, right?" He turned around, looked, and realized it was her. Yes, I think so. Why didn't you say hello?" "That's what I did. I said hello," he said. "But you didn't stay and talk to me. Why not?" "I don't know you. I've never seen you before. I didn't think you'd be interested." He hated that blush. He knew she could see it. "You're not very talkative, are you?" "Not really. You know, you're making everything very complicated. You're very straightforward, you know," he said, smiling. I know it's art, she said, straightening her hair with her hand, posing with her leg bent and laughing. John fell in love with that laugh again and decided he would do almost anything to hear it again. She's completely out of my league. This is crazy. If I don't leave now, my heart will break. Well, I guess I'll go. I have a test tomorrow, and I need a couple more hours to check. Wait, what are you studying? Engineering. Tomorrow, I have a test on thermodynamics. I don't even know what thermodynamics is. I like engineering because it has rules. Rules can lead you to all sorts of things. You just have to be creative when you look at them and maybe apply them a little differently than someone else to succeed. I try to apply rules and trends to life in general. It helps me understand things. I don't know what you're getting at. She smiled, looking at him expectantly. It's like that from across the room in the middle of the day, just like last time. You're at least a 9 when you smile. At least you're a 9.5. And when you laugh, you're a solid 10. I'm a 5, maybe a 6 on a good day. She laughed. The only rule of dating that I've been able to figure out is that you should never date someone who is 1 or 2 levels above you. Any wider gap, and the lower level will suffer. I'm the lowest level here. Come on, you don't really believe in this, do you? Absolutely. Take us, for example. I worship the ground you walk on, convinced that the only reason you don't walk on water is that you don't want to get your shoes wet. You know that I'm obsessed with things like school or the projects I'm working on. It's out of my control, it's just who I am. He smiled at her, and she found his smile sweet, almost boyish, as if he had a secret that only he knew. I'm also absent-minded and quite a slob. No, not really. I just have a very high tolerance for clutter. He smiled again and spoke loudly over the noise of the party. You'll begin to smile less and won't laugh at all. Then some great guy will find you, and you'll decide that maybe you deserve better. Every time you look at me, you're convinced that you can do better. Without being overconfident. He smiled at her as she looked at him with wide, icy blue eyes. Don't look at me like that. It's distracting. She laughed again, throwing her head back. Boldness is defined as self-confidence that outweighs skill, but you definitely have the assets to do it better than I do. So, of course, not in a cocky way, but if you continue, you'll be away from me again. Over the course of days, weeks, or perhaps even years, as this story unfolds, you will dislike me, maybe even hate me. I will leave with a broken heart. Maybe we should just skip to the end. It's much less painful. You're crazy. You can't know that. Can you? She said, laughing. Well, in my mind, I just got into a relationship with a beautiful woman. We went through the whole relationship, and you never swore at me, and we parted as friends. Overall, have a nice day. Have a happy life. He pushed away from the door frame and turned to leave. Wait, she said. He turned and looked at her. There was a slight sadness in his eyes and laughter in hers. With everything that we meant to each other during this relationship, she said, making quote signs with her beautiful, neat hands with long, pointed manicure, and all the trials and tribulations I had to go through, it was so hard. She ran the back of her hand across her forehead. Are you just going to leave? No goodbye kiss? Nothing? He kissed her. He leaned over and whispered in her ear, bye. Then he left. She stood there stunned, frozen, watching him make his way through the crowd, out of the building, and into the darkness. As soon as she came out of her trance, she tried but was unable to get through the crowd fast enough to catch him. When she rushed out the door and looked both ways, he was nowhere to be seen. 2 days later, he was sitting in the student center reading a textbook when she walked up with a playful blonde. Hey, Mindy, this is my ex. We were very happily married for a while, and then he lost his confidence and left. Hi, ex. Hi, Mindy. He doesn't even know your name. You weren't married, Mindy said, looking as if she was in on the joke but wasn't quite sure. Well, what is your name? If I'm going to yearn for a lost love, I should at least know your name. John. Maggie. She reached out and shook John's hand. They started talking, and when they looked up, it was already dark, and there were very few people left in the student center. At some point, Mindy went somewhere, but neither of them noticed. Thank you for your time, Maggie. Have a nice weekend. I'll look for you nearby. John, If you asked me out on a date, I would probably say yes. Maggie, your 10 against my 5 just doesn't work. John, you know that the rating includes not only appearance. Is that the only thing you're interested in about me? And by the way, you're definitely above a 5 in looks. No, that's not true. But now that I know how smart you are, how sweet, it seems to me that this is not so. Yes, but now that I know you and how good you are much closer to a 10 than a 5 in my eyes. Don't sell yourself short and don't make decisions for me. Besides, what don't you like about me? Why do I scare you so much? Mr. Who doesn't know this, huh? Are you asking for compliments? Let me think. He looked at her, and she looked into his brown eyes, which gave them a personality unlike any eyes she had seen before. Okay, how about this? When you laugh, my heart gets lighter. When you smile, my knees get weaker. When you talk about the theory of ethics in business, which has to be the most boring topic I can imagine, I can't breathe. I hang on every word. I have never spoken to anyone who has my full concentration like you do every time you speak. I love it when you laugh. I would hang upside down from the bottom branch of a tree and make monkey noises if I thought it would make you laugh. She laughed, and he smiled a soft, thoughtful smile. You don't talk about your problems. You think about others, and I find it almost irresistible. I'm so hurt, so scared that I know that at some point in the future, you will break my heart, and it will be my fault. I'll do something to make you angry, or I won't do what I should. It will crush me when you say goodbye, and I already love you so much that I cannot imagine this pain. I don't know if I'm willing to take the risk. Wait, did you just say you love me? Yes. Now I have to go. See you. John, wait. She shouted as he crossed the room, heading towards the door. Please don't make me beg. I'll do it if I have to, but please don't do this to me. Just meet me tomorrow for dinner, wherever you want. Am I in? He hesitated for a moment, then shook his head as if he was about to do something he shouldn't have. I have a test on Thursday morning. How about Thursday evening? I can't do it on Thursday. Will Friday work? Sure. Meet me here at 6 o'clock. Please. You're done, guy. Just give up. She won. He leaned back in the folding chair. The rain was now falling steadily, cold. He rose from the chair, walked over to the steering wheel, and went down the 3 steps leading to the cabin, crawling under the stairs onto the double bunk. Tears mixed with the rain running down his face. He missed her so much, but she left. It was so painful. He would never make such a mistake again. John woke up to sunlight streaming through the overhead hatch. He cooked himself some scrambled eggs and sat down at a small table to eat. He used to love sitting there with Maggie, but then he started remembering the pain. He looked at his phone and realized he had to call the guys. He had a message from each of them. He really wanted to avoid their involvement in all of this. He had 2 sons, Jimmy and Sid. Jimmy was just finishing college and was working hard during the summer as an intern for financiers. John didn't quite know what he was doing, he was just trying really hard. In fact, the guy called the day after he graduated from college and said that he no longer needed monthly payments. He wanted to stand on his own 2 feet. Sid was a scientist and had many years of study ahead of him. He was working on his doctoral dissertation. John thought he was good for another 3 years or so. He agreed that the company he worked for would pay him a salary, tuition, and books. He had to work there for 3 years after he graduated, but he was covered financially for almost everything. With a large salary, he had the same love of the sea as John and began to study oceanography. John always teased him about spending so much time learning how rusted in salt water. The thought of this brought the first glimmer of a smile in days. Hey Sid, I saw you called. Hey Dad, where are you going? I decided to take a break. I'm away, traveling. Mom is going crazy. Dad, what happened? You don't need to know that. Just know that it was bad, and I need to get away for a while. Mom wants to know where you are. No, and I know what you'll tell her if I tell you, so I'm not going to tell you. Please, just stay away from it. I will be in touch. Dad, what have you done? I didn't do anything. Just know that I'm away and will contact you as soon as I get there. If you need anything, your mother won't give you the call. I'm going to be in touch for a few days, so leave a message if I don't answer. You're on a yacht, right? Did you go north or south? Yes, I went north. Or south. I have to run. I'll call you. I love you, Dad. I love you too, Sid. Jimmy's call was predictable. Dad, where are you? What did you do? Mom is hysterical, constantly crying, and doesn't know where you are. Since yesterday, she has been calling me once an hour and asking if I have heard from you. What did you do? I didn't do anything, Dad. Go home. You're acting like a child. Jim, I want to tell you not to get involved in this, not to take sides until you hear the whole story. I'll be gone for a while. I'll call you from time to time. If you can't tell me what you did, don't worry. The tone of Jimmy's voice set John off, the anger that had always been lurking beneath the surface boiling over. I want to tell you again, Jimmy, don't take sides until you know what you're talking about. Once you know, then you can take sides, and the dust will settle. Mom said that you are traveling, and in her opinion, you have a girlfriend. I go to work so she can have the clothes she wants, the house she wants, the damn car. No, I don't have a girlfriend. Never have. Not once. Ever. Don't do this, Jimmy. Don't call me. Damn it, my name is Jim. You're acting like Jimmy. I'll tell you what, let's not do this again anytime soon. We must run. He always had a good relationship with both boys, but Jim was a mama's boy. Always was. But he was also the jock in the family. He played surfing, football, hockey, and never did anything halfway. John was the early morning driver for away hockey games. He was the one who drove Jimmy to North Carolina when it was too cold to sail the mid-Atlantic. He was the one who coached the football team since Jimmy was healthy. Jimmy was a mama's boy, but he still had a good relationship with John, or at least John thought he did. Looks like that was changing too. He knew Sid would be patient and calculating, but Jimmy, he would quickly take sides. Another weather check between Virginia Beach and Wilmington, North Carolina, told him it would be a good day for sailing. He had 3 days of calm seas before the next system picked up a bit. He should be able to reach St. Augustine in 3 days, then he'd lay down for a couple of days before his boat hit Palm Beach. It had been a long journey. He followed the channel through the bay and found himself back on the open sea, south, definitely south. As soon as he hit the open water and turned on the autopilot, the movie in his head started again. She says you're the best she's ever had. He was sitting on a low concrete wall in the courtyard. She called and said that she needed to talk to him, that it was very important. He decided that he had nothing to lose. Becky, we only went out to dinner twice, to a movie once, had a picnic by the river, and a barbecue. That's all. We kissed a couple of times, but no more. John met Becky at a barbecue. She was another bubbly blonde who was Maggie's sorority sister. Maggie gave her his number. John was sure of that. I know, but she still says that you are the best in her life. She's assured of that. All you have to do is make your move. Are you kidding me? She asked you to call me? Are we still in high school? Next call is to her, and then you call me again to tell me what she said, etc. I won't play that game, John. Sometimes she wants to be with you more than on Saturdays. Becky, last question, why me? I see guys chasing her all the time, but why me? Please, John, call her. She's moping because you haven't called her for a couple of weeks. Do you think she knows that a telephone is a two-way communication device? She could have called me. Becky glared at John. I'll call her. John met Maggie at the doors of the girls' dormitory. She was sitting on the stairs waiting for him when he arrived. Hey, Maggie. Hey, Becky. How are you? Hello, John. She turned to Maggie and ran her hand over her shoulder as if removing a piece of fluff. Don't be late, dear. I'll wait for you upstairs. She laughed and ran up the stairs into the house. John, can we talk? Of course. Here? No, too many eyes and ears, if you know what I mean. Let's go for a walk. As they crossed the field separating the undergraduate and graduate dormitories and sat down on a bench, Maggie shuddered. John, do you like me? Do you find me beautiful? I thought we figured that out in our first conversation. Maggie, do you know what the problem is? What am I missing? John sat in silence for a while until a dark blue Porsche drove by. The window was down, and a young man leaning out of the window was shouting at them, "Sweet baby, come on baby, let's go for a ride." John smiled as she gave the guy the finger. "That's the problem, Maggie. Every guy who's ever seen you wants you. Sooner or later, I won't be able to stand it. I'm kind of an old-fashioned guy. I want relationships that go somewhere. I just don't see how we can handle the pressure you put on the other guys. I need exclusivity. It's just what I need. I will not compete in matters of the heart. It's either right or wrong. It's not a competition. I saw you on campus with others. You were flirting with them. I couldn't stand it. It just doesn't work for me. John, I'm not interested in anyone anymore. When I went to Bogart's for drinks with the guys last Wednesday, I didn't think that was right. I don't know his name, but I know this guy. You seemed quite friendly, holding hands at the table. John, he doesn't mean anything to me. It was just a date between friends. We are no exception. Why didn't you let me know you were there? Well, I guess that means it's not working for me, John. If you want to be exclusive, I can do it. Can you? What happens when I have to write an article, work on a project, or even worse, go on a business trip? You can just wait for me. Are you going to miss the big party, the event of the season? John, I only want you. I'll break up with other guys. I can wait for you when needed. They're all just friends, not like you. Maggie, you should know that I'm bad at sharing with others. I'm not jealous. I won't watch your every move. But it will only take one time. Once trust is gone, it's gone. It won't come back, ever. John, I understand. I will never lose your trust, I promise. So, we are officially in a relationship? John blushed. Maggie thought it was so cute. Yes, John. Thank you. They walked around campus for several hours and had lunch in the student center. When they got out and started across the road, Maggie sprained her ankle and would have fallen if John had not caught her. It hurts. John carefully placed her on the ground and gently removed the tennis shoe from her foot. She didn't seem damaged, but what did John know, right? It's not a fracture. Can you put pressure on it? Let's get you to the ambulance. It's next to my apartment, not far from here. John picked her up, put his arm around her neck, and carried her. A couple of hours later, after being diagnosed with a slight sprain and receiving instructions to avoid exertion, they left. She limped a little, and John took her to his apartment. He carried her up the stairs, only putting her down to insert the key into the lock. John thought about returning to the here and now, to the boat bouncing in the growing sea. He looked at his GPS and saw that he was almost directly east of the bay. He slowed down the gas a little and turned west toward the bay. His eyes struggled to focus through his tears. The most terrible thought came to mind. I wonder if this was her first time with Brett. The pain was almost physical, and the anger surged with full force. After refueling the boat, he drove to a temporary house he had rented for the night. He went downstairs and pulled out a folding chair. He sat on the deck with a bottle of whiskey at his feet. John was too exhausted to go out the next day, so he just lounged around the boat. His phone continued to vibrate, but he didn't touch it until it reached the edge of the table. Each incoming call made it feel like he was about to hit the floor. It was strangely fascinating to him, like watching an ant walking along the sidewalk. Hello, John. Where are you? Why don't you want to come home so we can talk? She dove straight into the argument, not even bothering with a greeting. This is not my home anymore. I don't live there anymore, and I'll never come to your house again. John, please don't do this. Please. But it didn't mean anything. Don't say that, Maggie. It didn't mean anything. It was just one time. I didn't mean it. It just happened. All the other stupid excuses and reasons, I hate to be a cliché. Don't you dare lie to me anymore. I only need to ask one question, and then I'll walk off into the sunset, and you'll never hear from me again. Why? John, please, I love you. Please, can we end this? Maggie, remember after we started dating, you had a date. You told me you broke up with Tim and needed to see him again. This is not what I saw then, and it's not what I feel now. It was bad then, and it's even worse now. You've broken our trust, or at least my trust in you. I gave you a chance, and it took a while, but you ruined it. Now answer my question before I hang up for the last time. Why? John, it's not what you think. It was a mistake. This is the first true thing you've told me. It was definitely a mistake. It ended our relationship, our marriage, our happy home, our children. Remember? John's anger continued to rise, matching the discomfort in his stomach. Didn't I always give you everything you wanted? A house outside the city, a car, clothes, jewelry. I thought our life was pretty good. You never complained. Now I understand that it wasn't enough. He heard sobs on the phone. It wasn't you, John. It was me. Why, Maggie? Answer me just one question. Why? If it's not because of me, then why? John, just come home. Tell me where you are, and I will come to you. Please, can we just sit and talk? No. I need to know why. I don't know, John. It just happened that way. If we can't understand why, then how can we avoid it in the future? I'm over it. We're done. Goodbye, Maggie. Please understand that this is goodbye, not see you later or talk later. Just goodbye. No, John. He heard her voice fading as he reached for the end button. He would never forget those painful days at the start of their relationship. He should have seen this coming. She told him she would break up with the others. God, how many of them were there? The movie in his head started again. Sitting in the sun with a glass of water and the cup holder next to him, he first heard her laugh. Looking across the yard, he saw her standing hand in hand with Tim, throwing her head back and laughing, holding his hand, her beautiful smile. He didn't expect that it would never be shared with someone else, but the way she looked at the guy told him that this was not the relationship she said she had with others. John had a choice: remain in the shadows or make himself known. Not being one to shy away, he stepped out of the shadow of the tree he was standing under. Hello, Maggie. The look on her face told him everything he needed to know. They promised to be exclusive. She told him she loved him over 2 weeks ago. It didn't look exclusive. John, this is Tim. Nice to meet you. Tim extended his hand, but John did not reciprocate. He almost felt sorry for Tim. He clearly didn't know anything. It was good to see you, Maggie. John turned and walked away. He wanted to hit and hurt someone, but he just couldn't do it. John, wait. Sorry, I don't have time. Maggie froze in indecision. She was going to break up with Tim, she just didn't have the time yet. She felt her face turn pale and a strong fear settle in her stomach. Honestly, she was about to stop talking to Tim, who was standing there looking at her and then at John as he turned the corner of the building, walking out of sight. Then she realized what he meant by this. Who was that? Tim asked, uncertainty showing on his face. It was John. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. What do you mean you wanted to talk? He's my boyfriend, I guess. Then why are you here with me? I wanted to talk to you face to face, maybe at dinner. I don't blame him for being angry. You are, Maggie. Tim, wait. John went to the library and really tried to study, but it just didn't work. He knew it was useless, but he tried anyway. In the end, he gave up and went home. Hey, are you here? That chick you were talking about was trying to contact you. She calls about every 20 minutes. The phone rang as if on command. I don't want to talk to her. What should I tell her? Tell her I'm not here and to stop bothering you. What did she do, run over your dog? Cruel person. Hello? After a short hesitation, no, he's not here. I was told not to expect him today. I don't know where he is. I just know that he's not here. John heard her reply from across the room. Ray hung up and smiled at John. Let's go have a drink and tell old Ray everything. I'll buy the first 3 rounds, then you're on your own. Late that evening, Ray put John to bed. He had heard enough about St. Maggie. As soon as John got drunk, he started talking about meeting her, spending time with her, watching movies, what he liked about her, which was almost everything. Then he continued whining until his speech became slurred and conscious thoughts faded. Ray was glad that he had finally calmed down. It couldn't cure everything, but sometimes a good drinking session could cure a lot. John left campus after the exam. He spent a week at home communicating with his mom and dad. His father was the one who made him go on the boat. His father sailed and had a nice 32-foot Nicholson. John fell in love with the sea, with the wildlife, swimming after dark, following the light tracks of a dolphin, and the night sky near the shore. The stars were so bright. He lay on his back and just watched the stars move across the sky. It crushed him that he couldn't share this with Maggie. Maggie was already waiting for him when he arrived at the house. "How did you find me?" "I didn't want this. I went to look for you, and when Ray tried to explain to me that you had left, I saw an envelope addressed to you on the table. I went to your house, but only your mother was home. We spent the day together, and I told her what happened. Finally, she told me that she was returning to shore today, so I walked to the nearest pier and waited. She didn't tell me where to find you. I arrived here at 7 a.m. today, but I was so afraid that I would miss you. She told me not to expect a warm welcome, that you don't open up often, but she said she knows something is bothering you. It's not like you to drop out of school like that. She was right. I don't want you here." "Why, John?" "I told you I was retreating. I said it might take some time. Did you sleep with him?" "Why are you asking me this?" "No, I didn't sleep with him." "Well, not this time. We said we were exclusive, and that's what we are, abandoning everyone else." From the moment we agreed, Tim didn't seem to understand this. He left me in the yard. I never saw him again and never will. John, I thought he was a smart guy. John, you are all I need. Please. He was about to leave. I didn't expect to see you with him. This hit me quite hard. I won't compete for you, Maggie. It either works or it doesn't. You either love me or you don't. If you love me, you won't want to be with anyone else. If I ever find out that you are with another guy, it will mean that you don't love me, and that will be the last time you see me. Look, I came here to see you so you know I took our promise of exclusivity seriously. It didn't mean anything to me. I understand what it looked like to you, and I'm so sorry. This will never happen again. Can we go back to the way things were? Please don't leave me. This, please, Maggie. If you had been honest with me, I would have managed. I would hate the idea of you dating another guy, but I could probably handle it. Not knowing and stumbling across this, it just seemed like you were hiding something, being dishonest. I won't do this. I just won't. He shook his head and looked down. In the next few short moments, he ran through his mental checklist. Will life be better with or without her? For several weeks, there was a frost between them, but Maggie continued to pursue him, and over time, John thawed. Their relationship gained momentum and grew again. The ice in the glass had long since melted. John took a sip of warm water. Why did I get the hint? Has she been seeing guys on the side all this time? How long has she been cheating? Has this marriage been a farce for the last 30 years? Was there anything real about it? John was surprised. He stood up and prepared to go to sea again. Cleaning, buying provisions, and sleeping that night were difficult for him. Questions swirled in his head. The next morning, he went to Georgia, then to Florida, and finally to Nassau. Maggie, what should I do now? Maggie screamed, turning to Becky. I lost him. I lost everything. Becky didn't give up. Maggie, why did you do this? What were you thinking? You left a 30-year relationship. How are you going to explain this to the boys? I'm not going to explain this to the boys. Oh my God, how could I? This caused a new flow of tears. She covered her face with her hands, tears streaming down her cheeks. Have you talked to them? No, not really. Since I told them he left, I keep calling them to see if he called. He only called Jimmy once, but Sid is silent. So, in their opinion, John just left you for no reason. He just left, and you don't think they'll be surprised if John did something wrong? Will you just let them think what they think? Are you willing to take the risk? Will it damage their relationship with John, and you can't do anything to prevent it? You don't deserve him, you know that, right? I was so good that I just slipped. You know, you sound like you slipped on a banana peel. What were you thinking about? Do you think John will ever forget walking in and seeing this? Maggie looked at her, understanding in her eyes. You crushed the sweetest guy I've ever met. He was a coach. He gave everything to you and the guys. He worked like hell. Do you have any idea how many women wanted to pounce on him? I watched this happen. He was always polite, always gentle, but always decisive. No, he'd say. He wasn't interested. You threw it all away. I have to do something, Becky. I have to let him know that I love him. You can try, but I wouldn't rely on you. If you can get him to talk to you, if you can beg, crawl to him, be the most wonderful wife in history and never even think about lying to him again, it will kill him in an instant. You'll also have to deal with the boys. If they blame their father, it's all over. Over. You know that, right? Oh God, I screwed up. I ruined everything. He must talk to me. He must. John sat on the floor of the cab in the back, holding the pump in his hand. He was in his uniform shorts and a shabby t-shirt, always a fish t-shirt. His tan had darkened over the last week in port, the Caribbean sun had burned him unceasingly. Hello, I'm Sarah. Hello, Sarah. Without looking up, he noticed that there was a locking ring on the body. If I turn it like this, it might come free. Then I can clean it, John thought. What are you doing? I'm fixing the pump. What about him? He doesn't pump? Yes, but what is he doing? He pumps water into a live well. Okay, now I understand. John realized he knew less than he thought. The sarcasm made him look up. Long blonde hair, thin but not skinny, the sun shining on her back. John couldn't see her eyes, but saw her smile. He instinctively smiled back. There's a tank that holds the bait fish, and this pump puts water into it, pulling it out of the ocean. It then pumps the water into the tank. The water flows into a drain which returns to the ocean. This way, the water stays fresh, doesn't get too hot, and ensures the presence of oxygen to keep the bait alive. Hence the name Live Well. This was the longest conversation he had been involved in for the last 3 weeks. That was cute. What's so cute about it, Sarah? You explained it as if everyone would want to know, not as if I was stupid, even if I seem stupid for asking the question. Thank you. My pleasure. You don't talk much, do you? Usually not. Can I come on board and have a look? Sarah, can I help you with something? I'm just trying to figure out how to fix the pump. I wanted to go fishing in the morning. Sorry if you don't want to be disturbed. I was just, my mom and dad decided it would be useful for me to sail here on a yacht, but they just remind me of bad things, things I really don't want to think about. John looked at her again. She hesitated, apologizing. He saw the pain flash across her face, only to disappear a second later. Well, if you're looking for company, I'm not sure I'm the right fit right now. I try not to think about bad things too. Are you here alone? Where are your wife and children? John winced and, for some reason, didn't want to lie to her. The wife will soon be an ex. At home, the children have grown up and left. Did you come here alone in this boat? I need to buy a new pump. Come back later if you want. Can I come with you? Where can I buy such a pump? Of course, if you want. I need to go to the provision store at the wharf. Will you wait for me? I need to tell my mom where I'm going. Certainly. John watched as she ran across the dock, up the gangplank, and onto a 60-foot sailboat a few steps away. She ran as only women can, smooth as silk, her hair rushing from side to side. She was great. A man peered out of the cabin onto the dock, and John waved shyly. The man didn't wave back. Sarah ran back along the dock, her white shirt with small pink horizontal lines almost completely hiding her body, loose and conservative. When he could see her face without sunlight, he decided she was probably about 30. Tiny wrinkles appeared at the corners of her eyes, and a crease appeared at the corners of her mouth, eyes that were both beautiful and smart, insightful and wise. Do your parents mind if you come with me? Yes, they're just playing it safe. I went through some bad times before we came here. I'm really sorry. They walked up the pier in silence. As they approached the pier office, the music of the steel drums grew louder. There was a tiki bar with a sand floor, and several people sat at the counter watching the band play. John asked, Sarah, would you like a drink? It would be great. Are you sure everything is okay? I mean, do you have time? Yes, I haven't really talked to anyone for a couple of weeks, just me and the deep abyss. I'm stuck on this boat with my mom and dad. The couple of the century, not exactly what I need right now. What do you need now? A glass of white wine. John smiled at her. They sat at a table away from the bar, away from the noise and bustle of the orchestra. The afternoon breeze was just beginning to pick up strength, dispelling the stifling summer heat. "So, John, how long are you going to stay here? What's your story? Let's figure out why they are, I quote, a couple of centuries and why it drives you crazy in the first place. I went through a difficult divorce, and my parents decided that I needed to leave. They decided we would come here, rent a boat, and sail away from everything." She laughed musically, melodiously, and at the same time sadly. Her teeth were dazzling white, and her eyes were a soft green. "And what's wrong with that? They seem to care about you. A bad divorce, and I'm stuck on a yacht with two people who have been head over heels in love with each other since they were 16. It just reminds me of what I'll never have. I love them, very, very much. It's just a pity that Dad doesn't know how to swim or didn't hire a captain who can. I don't know what to wish for. I thought I had it all, a good job, a good marriage for 20 years, a house with a white picket fence, a kid doing well in college. And then one night, it all fell apart. It was all over in one night." A tear rolled down her cheek. "I'm very sorry that I fell on you, John. I'm sorry. I have to go. Sarah, please don't go. She can't be old enough for all this to happen. It just can't be," John thought. "I've been doing this for almost 30 years, and it all happened in 15 minutes. It was during the day, not at night, but the end result was the same. I left and never returned." "Oh, John, I'm so sorry. Are you divorced too?" "No, I haven't gone through that process yet. Have you talked to her? What happened when this happened?" "I talked to her several times on the way here, just short conversations, more questions from me than anything else. There aren't many answers. Let's see, it's a week and a half to get here, and I've been here for almost a week." Sarah leaned back in her chair and looked at John with a sad expression. It was the most caring look John had seen in months. "So recently, John, do you want to talk about it? Maybe someday, not now. When are you coming home? We have 2 weeks left on the ship, but we can return earlier. Dad tried to steer the boat, but it turned out to be much more difficult than he remembered, and Mom and I don't know anything. There's nothing we can do to help. This must really suck for your dad." John looked at his phone, 23 unread messages. He opened his marine weather app. "There will be a little strong wind today, but tomorrow everything will be fine. Maybe we can take the boat out for the day. Do you think your father will let me help him drive the boat? I don't know. I wouldn't want to offend him, but maybe so. Don't tell me you know how to control her." "Yes, my dad had a 30-foot sailboat when I was younger. We sailed a lot. It wasn't as big as your boat, but I can't imagine the principles are much different. Will you have lunch with us tomorrow? Can you tell Dad this and see?" Sarah leaned forward in her chair, her gaze intense. She looked so worried and scared at the same time that it felt like it wasn't true, like it wouldn't work. "I think we can work something out. Meet here tomorrow at noon." "Oh, John, I'm so sorry. I understand what you're going through, and I'm asking you to help my family. It's not fair." "It's okay, Sarah. I don't mind, really." The next day at noon, John walked up the dock ramp and saw Sarah waving at him. As he approached the bar, he reached out and shook the old man's hand. "Sir John Baker, nice to meet you. Ben Livingston." The smile did not reach Ben's eyes, and he looked at John suspiciously. "I understand that you are sailing?" "Yes, sir," John answered, sitting down in the empty chair opposite Ben. "My father owned a 32-foot Nicholson when I was younger. Instead of baseball and camping, we swam in the summer. He eventually sold the boat a couple of years ago when he could no longer operate it on his own. John, this is my mother, Beth Livingston." Beth was an older version of Sarah, still beautiful, with the same smile. "Hi, John. Thanks for meeting with us today. Sarah told us that you can sail, and Ben was very excited that maybe tomorrow we'll sail on the boat. We don't want to take advantage of you, but it would be a really big favor for us." Ben and Beth interrogated him with practiced skill. Ben asked technical questions, and Beth interjected with difficult questions during the conversation. On reflection, John realized that they knew much more about him than he was willing to share. All three of them knew that he had caught his wife cheating, that it was still too fresh to know what he was going to do. They knew about the past of his boys, the fact that he was hiding from everything down here with no schedule. They knew he was an engineer who had been out of contact with his office for almost 3 weeks and that he was almost ready to face the world again. The schedule for tomorrow was drawn up in advance. John lay at the bow on the sailbags, watching the calm water approach him. A light breeze allowed them to move freely on the shallow waves of the ocean. Sarah settled down next to him, also lying on her back and looking up at the sky. "Penny for your thoughts, John. They probably aren't worth a penny. In fact, I'll probably have to pay you. You know that? You made Dad happier than I could have imagined just a day ago. He's better than he thinks. I did little but give him the confidence to make decisions. He is okay. John, what are you going to do now? I'll have to pay you." "That's exactly what I was thinking. I think my break with reality is coming to an end. I need to contact the office. I'm sure I have some things to do. I need to clear things up with my kids, and I'll have to contact her and start dividing things up. Get ready to go." Ben shouted from the helm. "He's at his best, isn't he?" Sarah said, as John began to rise with a rare smile on his face. "Good to see. Look how your mom is looking at him, like he's about to fly into space or something." There was a cloud in John's eyes. "I thought I had it," he said. "Sorry." John released the port line as the sail began to sway. He turned and pulled the starboard slack as the boat began to heel. Satisfied with the adjustment, he ensured the sails were getting maximum thrust from the light breeze. The mainsail was leaning without the slightest trepidation. Looking up, he saw they were sailing downwind toward the port and knew that his calm day of sailing would soon come to an end. He sat down again on the canvas bags. "I'm not looking forward to it. I know how you feel. I went through this about a year ago. John, no matter what happens, I would like to keep in touch with you." She didn't think John could hear her heartbeat, but it was there. "I know this is not the time, and this is not what you were thinking, but in just a couple of short days, you have reminded me that there are decent people out there." She blushed, looked at him, and just as quickly looked away. When he caught her eye, she said, "Decent people, Sarah. If we had met at another time." Later, when the sails were reefed, John steered the boat into the slip, making sure the ropes were securely tied. He leaned over and turned off the diesel engine. "It was fun, Ben. Thanks for a great day. It brings back a lot of good memories." "Thank you, son. Are you going to spend another day this week?" Ben smiled hopefully at John, his silver hair blowing in the wind, his cheeks stained red from the sun. He had the expression of a truly happy man. "I would love to, but I'll have to go on my own schedule. Can I call you back?" "Certainly. Just let us know when you want to come out. I know Sarah will love it." "I would like it too, sir. Can you pack everything and wash the boat, or do you need help?" "I think women are already working on this, but thank you." Ben smiled and pointed to Sarah and Beth, who were scrubbing the deck with soapy water. "Then I'll leave. Have a nice evening." John slid from the gunwale onto the pier, smiling. "I feel like a British captain during the Second World War," he thought. Returning to his boat, crawling into it reminded him of his loneliness. He felt even more alone than the day before. Maybe he was starting to feel again. Maybe this was good, maybe not. Anger surged through him again. He took the phone and turned it on. For the first time in a long time, voicemail and messages weren't his priority, so he dialed. "Bob, you're alive." "John, I'm really starting to worry." "Where the hell are you?" "I'm in Nassau." "Wow. How are you doing, buddy? Are you okay?" "I'm still very angry. I know I have a job to do, even while I'm here licking my wounds." "Yes, John, we have a problem with Alexander's equipment. They have valves and motors that constantly fail. They want a new design to fix it. Can we move the valve or fix the damage or whatever? Do you have time to deal with this? Email me the plans, Bob, and I'll take a look. I'll answer you by the end of the day tomorrow. If you do this tomorrow, I will feel much calmer because of your direct contribution." "Yeah, about my direct deposit, hold it for a day or two. I need to start separating things, sorting out my investments. Speaking of which, she calls every day and asks if she has heard from you. Can I tell her we talked? Until you tell her where I am, you can assume we were talking. If you talk to her, tell her I won't talk to her again until she tells me why. I already told her about this, but I think it won't hurt her to hear it again in a different voice. John, how can I contact you? I called your cell phone several times with questions, but it went straight to voicemail. I turned it off. I'll call you every day at 3 o'clock if I'm not fishing. If I'm not there, I'll call you when I get back. John and Bob discussed various projects, from equipment startup to maintenance phases, for over an hour. They discussed the normal day-to-day running of business and personnel issues. It was a normal conversation, and the normality of it didn't hit John until he hung up. Dad, where the hell are you now? It's not funny anymore. Mom is going crazy. She calls me every day and asks if I have heard from you. Jim called me too. Where are you and what happened? Asked Sid. Sid, I really don't want to get into this. It was really bad. Dee and I don't see us coming back from this. Mom told me the cops were looking for you. What did you do? I hit someone. That doesn't sound very good, Dad. When are you going to come back home? I'm not sure I'm going to do this for anything other than a short visit. I need to clean some things up, and then I'll come back here. Where is it, Dad? Just not in the city. Once I work things out with your mom, I'll tell you, and you can come visit me. Jimmy is going crazy too. He said your last conversation didn't go well. He is very angry and wants to know what you did to Mom. She doesn't tell us anything, she just cries a lot. In time, he will get over it, and so will she. Come on, Dad, just tell me what's going on, please. Just understand that I'm fine and I'll be back soon. I'll let you know when I arrive. Maybe we can have dinner or something. Kristen would like to see you too. Dad, tell her hi, and I'll call you in a week or two. John ended the call, pulled out the chair he'd bought on the way down, and popped the cap on a new bottle of whiskey. John woke up to Sarah pulling his arm. Come on, John, you need to go to bed. You shouldn't be here, not now. I'm not a very good person. Oh, get up, go to bed, and we'll talk in the morning. You know you're beautiful, right? In your condition, everyone is beautiful. Not all. Sarah smiled as John stood up unsteadily and stumbled down the 3 steps into the cabin. She laid John on the bed, covered him with a blanket, and kissed his forehead. When the first snoring began, she said, "We'll talk in the morning," then watched him sleep for a few moments before quietly climbing out of the boat. John woke up trying to count the hangovers he'd had lately. For some reason, this was extremely important to him right now. John, get your heel out of bed. Come on, I've got bacon and eggs for you. John stumbled up the stairs, and Sarah laughed. You did it better last night. Yes, about last night. Was I a bad guy? If so, then I'm very sorry. You said that I'm beautiful and that you love me. If you're serious, then everything is fine. If it was back then yes, you're the bad guy. Oh, I'm sorry. I mean yes, you're beautiful, but John, I'm kidding. Relax. But I want you to talk to me this morning. Can you turn off the sun? It's terribly bright, John said, covering his face with his hands and rubbing his red and blurry eyes. It's good for you, vitamin D and all that. So, John, what happened? Do you really want to know my full and terrible story? Yes, I want to know what's eating you inside, John. It's not good to keep it all inside. I caught her cheating with someone, her boss from work. You said caught, but what does that mean? Did you hear her speak, see it somewhere, find a receipt? No, I went into their bedroom. Damn, what did you do? I hit him. You haven't talked to her since then? I talked to her a couple of times on the way here. I told her I wouldn't talk to her again until she told me why. She didn't answer my questions, and I haven't spoken to her since. You seem to be in pain and can't stop thinking about it. You drink yourself to sleep every night. I loved her, Sarah. I loved her with all my soul. I cherished her. Your use of the past tense seems terrible and final. No chance of reconciliation? No, the shine is gone from this apple. We went through an event when we first started dating, and I got over it. I'll always have that sight in mind every time I think about her, every time I see her. It makes me doubt myself, you know? Am I not good enough? Sarah laughed. John, men are much more prone to size than women. For some women, this may have meaning, but for most, it's the emotion of the event. The most important thing is the mind. Do you know what I mean? Then I must be lacking in skill. It was the little fool. I know I'm not as handsome as they say, but he wasn't much better. Don't think you're ugly, John. She told me the same thing once. It didn't help much. I should have known. I knew this would happen. What did you say? How do you know? When I was in college, I had a rule that came from my engineering classes combined with a little thinking: never date a person who is 1 or 2 points higher than you. The lower level always suffers. I was a level below. Here I was, wounded. I should have known. John, if she's more than 2 points above you, she must be amazing. Don't forget about the traitor. Are you sure it's all over, maid? I couldn't be more sure. I don't know what to say. I can't say anything. John, you don't want to hear that it will heal. There are more fish in the sea. Women are like buses. Wait a little, and another one will come. Pick your own cliché and paste it here. It hurts, it sucks more than I can describe, and the only thing that will heal is time. I'm sorry. Thank you, Sarah. A single tear rolled down his cheek, and the desire to hug him and comfort him was almost irresistible. John, when you get back on your feet, would you mind stopping by to see me? I wouldn't mind being your rebound, you know. Now is not the time, but I wouldn't mind if you got back on your feet and stopped by to see me. Sarah, I have to go back to the 1 or 2 point rule. Besides, I think I'll be going home next week to clean up some stuff, and when I get back, you'll be gone. It's okay, John. We'll see you again. I'm not asking for anything except maybe friendship. I'd like to think we'll see each other again. Sarah, I would really like to. The following week, on a flight from Miami to BVI, John was deep in thought. He looked down as the plane took off from Nassau, and seeing Sarah's boat sliding repeatedly deep below and then up along the dock filled him with a sudden melancholy. His thoughts flashed to sailing trips, calm and peaceful, with such a loving family. As soon as he reached home, his melancholy gave way to anger, and his thoughts increasingly returned to Maggie. When he exited the plane through the guarded door of no return, Maggie was already waiting for him. Almost a month had passed, she had lost a little weight, and bags had appeared under her red, swollen eyes. Even now, not at her best, she was beautiful. What are you doing here, Bob? Tell me when you're arriving. Please don't be angry with him. John, I'm so sorry. Please let me explain. I don't want to talk to you until you explain why. Are you ready to answer this question? I can try. Please. It's a yes or no answer, Maggie. Yes or no? I really don't know. John, I asked myself again and again why. How could I do this? John, please. I love you. I love only you. Please. She began to cry, her eyes turning a little red and tears running down both cheeks. Too many words, Maggie. I've been traveling all day. I'm tired. I just want to check into a hotel. I'll call you before I leave, but you have to figure this out. Please, John, I'm begging you to forgive me. Can't we move past this? Don't go to the hotel. Just come home. Maggie, you knew the rule, to leave everyone else. We were a team with no competition. Until death do us part, I thought this meant that one of us had to die eventually. But I think that was before the death of the relationship. You killed it. We broke up. End of story. Maggie begged him to come back as he left, getting into a taxi and driving away. John! Bob exclaimed when John walked into the office the next morning. Hi, Bob. Boy, how glad I am to see you. Clients asked about you, well, they asked most of all. They want you to help them. We're having trouble starting up. Can I ask you to go to St. Louis to help? They grumble and want you to stay there for a week or two, at least long enough to work things out. I don't know. I need to see a lawyer. I think I'll go to Tim to get my finances in order and figure out what other things I need to deal with. Are you okay? I know that should have been my first question, Bob asked, putting his arm around John's shoulders as they walked down the hallway. Bob, my head is clear, but emotionally, I'm dead. I don't know if I'll ever get over this. John reached across the table to the framed photograph of Maggie, picked it up, looked at it, and tossed it into the trash can. Everything here reminds me of her. I don't think I can do this. Maybe we should go our separate ways. John, you are the beating heart of this place. I know there is no one irreplaceable here except maybe you and me. I have an offer for you. Once you're settled in, let's go have lunch and talk. I think there is a way to solve this problem. I don't want to hear it, Bob. Don't try to convince me to return this liar. I'm not talking about her. I'm talking about work. Bob laughed and walked out the door. Bob, if I know, when I get divorced, I'll have to figure out how to keep her out of the business. Tomorrow morning, I have to meet with a lawyer and start the process. Well, have you thought about it? Yes. I think I'll go to the police station and turn myself in. You'll fire me for inappropriate behavior, and I'll sign up again as a consultant in a month or two after the divorce is final. She can only get her teeth into my consulting fees first. I need to meet with a lawyer. He will take me to the police station. You must settle everything through a lawyer. Do you think this idiot is going to press charges? I hope so. This will give us a reason for a new agreement between us. But I will hit him with a claim for alienation of affection, abnormal behavior, inappropriate behavior, moral clause, and anything else Tim can come up with. I'll convince him to drop the charges. We can figure out how to structure everything when this is all over. You know I hate this, right? You and I built this place together, and I enjoyed it. It's okay. Everything will be back to normal sooner than you think. Well, at least soon. Okay, we need to run. John, how are you doing? Tim smiled as he walked across the room with his hand outstretched. It's been better, Tim. These are personal law, family law, criminal law, and business law. I don't know who to turn to. I was hoping you could guide me. John, what's going on? A month ago, I found Maggie with her boss. Damn. How did you find her? I found her with him in my bed. What did you do? I hit him and then left the country. I boarded a ship to Nassau. I was away for about a month and only returned yesterday. Does she know you're back? Yes, they met me at the airport. I have a couple of questions. I want a divorce. Please collect these papers immediately and serve her, or tell me who I should hire to draw up the papers and serve her. I also have to deal with the cops. This is Brett, her boss from Dewey Scrum, and I believe I'm wanted on assault charges. Let me make a couple of calls. Could you wait outside for a bit? Before you do that, you should know that I want to use it. I think we can get in a given if we threaten to sue, but I have to be fired for inappropriate behavior so she can't get my half of the company. I didn't think to take photos, so I don't have any evidence other than what I saw. He said, I don't know if I can commit adultery, and I don't know if it would change everything if I could. Okay, let's get Mary and George here so we can approach this as a united front. I don't know how I can afford this, but what do you need as an advance? John, don't worry about it now. We'll work it out. This is the story of my life right now. Everything is in limbo. I hate this. When he appeared before a magistrate, it was by video recording. He stood next to George on the podium. In front of them was a screen with a picture of the judge. Okay, Mr. Juris Baker, it says here that you attacked Brett Garris by hitting him. What do you say? Guilty, Your Honor. Even in the video, the judge was an attractive woman. Her face was slightly angular, her eyes sparkling, and her expression intelligent. Do you admit that you hit this man? Please tell me there are mitigating circumstances. Yes, ma'am, there are, George responded. Oh, please, Mr. Baker, enlighten me. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but George interrupted him. At the crime scene, Your Honor. Thank you, George. Yes, ma'am, they were at the crime scene. John smiled. What do you mean? If that means they were in my bed, in my house, then that's true. A barely noticeable smile flashed across the judge's face. And you decided to hit him? Yes, ma'am. The staff appreciates your restraint, Mr. Baker. In 2 weeks, you will be in my courtroom. Is that okay with you? Yes, Your Honor, George answered. Mr. Baker, you have come to the wrong address. Mr. Garris contacted the state attorney. It is my understanding that he is very unhappy with the costs associated with his emergency care. If he's not happy, then the DA is not happy. Be ready. She even smiled at John. Thank you, ma'am. We'll be ready, George answered for him. And Mr. Baker, please don't hit anyone else. Yes, ma'am. You are released on your own recognizance and do not leave the state. Mr. Hans, it is your responsibility to ensure that your client is in court at the scheduled time. You are free. Yes, ma'am. He will be there. When George and John turned away from the stand, the judge heard George quietly exclaim to John, "Oh my God," she smiled. "I've never seen her smile before. She seemed nice to me." George, before John, she was never called sweetheart, and the emphasis is on never. It will be interesting. The next day, John received divorce papers by courier, dissolving the partnership on moral grounds based on his arrest and pending sentencing. He took the letter to Tim's office and left it there. Now he really had nothing to do but wait. The boat was still in Nassau. He was not allowed to leave the state, and he was unemployed. He rented a car and drove to the bay, sat on the shore, and watched the water rise and fall until it was dark enough that he couldn't see the water. His phone rang the next day at 11 a.m. while he was hanging out in his hotel room. "Hello, John." "Maggie, please don't do this." "Please, Maggie. I told you I don't want to talk to you anymore until you explain why." "John, I didn't want this to happen. It just sort of happened." "Maggie, do you have any idea how much this hurts? You tore my heart out of my chest. The only person I could trust, the one person I could talk to no matter whether I was proud or embarrassed, the person who never judged me. I thought we would grow old together and play with our grandchildren together. John, please let me explain. Let me show you that I love you. Please, let's meet and talk. Please, you will explain everything now. Okay, one shot, then you will sign the papers so we can move on with our lives. I have a lot of free time over the next 2 weeks, and then I'll probably be gone for a while." "What do you mean you're going away for a while? And why do you have free time? You mean after work?" "No, I was fired, and I don't want to go to jail. Brett filed charges." "Oh my God, John. How did you get fired? Were you a partner? Oh my God, I cost you your business. I can never forgive myself. I'm so sorry." She cried and breathed heavily between words. Morality clause: if one of us is accused of a crime, the other will get the company. I have a court date in a week. I don't know what will happen to this. I won't let him do this, John. I won't. I don't think you have a choice. Are you still working with him? John, please meet me. Let's see what I can do. Let me show you that I love you and only you. The fact that she was evasive did not go unnoticed. It's too late for that. I just want to get my business done and get out of here. Please, John, just lunch. Can we talk in a public place? I can't make too much of a scene. Okay. Tomorrow, at Luigi's in Little Italy, noon. Okay? Thank you, John. I love you, honey. Don't say that, and don't ever call me that again. You have lost the right to call me that. Okay, John. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. When she came in, he was sitting against the wall, facing the door. She was just as beautiful as she had been in college. Sure, she had put on a few pounds and her eyes were red, but once again, he noticed that she had aged a lot. Maggie, he said, not getting up when she approached the table. No hugs. She asked with a tight smile, no hugs, John? No, he replied. You're so cold. We spent 30 years together. You cheated on me how many times, and for how long does this last? It was just one time, John said. Do you seriously think that I will believe this was the first time? I do not trust you, John. It was a mistake. I didn't want this to happen. That's how it happened. You sound like you slipped on a banana peel. Don't be rude, John. Becky said the same thing. That's right, John. I'm so sorry. I can't believe you lost your company. What are you going to do? Are you going to fight this? No, it's in the contract, just like the morals clause in your employment contract at the law firm. I'm going after him. You know, alienation of affection. I'm going after the firm on the grounds that they didn't honor the morals clause with you and Brett. I'll think of something. John, you're just trying to hurt me. It's okay. Hurt me. I deserve it. Say what you want, and I will sit and listen. Take my job, make me suffer. I will sit here and suffer. Just let me show you that I'm sorry and that I love you. Who was that guy in college? Tim, I think. Do you remember this? Maggie lowered her eyes, tears dripping onto the tablecloth in front of her. Yes, she whispered quietly and sadly. Do you remember what I told you then? This was your only chance. Yes, you won't get anything else. How would you feel if you came home excited about meeting the love of your life, only to find him with someone else in your bed? She paused. Oh God, John, I'm sorry. I didn't think. So you just saw me in your head, didn't you? It hurts, John. It hurts. Do you want to feel the pain? How about the boys calling you and asking what you did wrong? Why would they think I did anything wrong? What did you tell them? I didn't. I didn't tell them anything, John. I just asked them where they were. Her sobs forced her to speak fragmentarily. You must be responsible for your actions. Until you do this, nothing will change. I don't know if I'll ever get over this. I don't know if this pain will ever go away. I know I will never trust you again. I can't. I told you this would happen back in college. You're 10 to my 5. I've had enough. If I don't end up in jail in the next 2 weeks, I'll leave here. Where are you going, John? I know that you were on the yacht. I went there to look for you. I found your truck and drove it home. It's in the driveway. Give it to one of the boys. Give it back. He didn't accuse me of anything. I don't know what will happen to Jimmy. You think I have a girlfriend? Maggie's face turned pale. Oh God, no. Tears flowed down her cheeks. I'm sorry for what I did. You destroyed this family for a few minutes, or was it a few hours? No, maybe it was days. I don't know. And don't tell me. I'll only think it was worse than everything you tell me because I don't believe you anymore. John, please believe me. Please. It was only one time. I am so sorry. I can't handle this. I'm leaving here. Don't call me. Don't write. Deal with the guys. If they call me, I'll know you've taken responsibility. I'll let you know if I don't go to jail. If I end up in jail, you won't be my only call. John stood up, threw a couple of 20s on the table, and left. Maggie reached out to him and touched his arm as he passed by. When he broke the touch, she lowered her head to the table. Mr. Baker, the judge began, I see that you have taken responsibility for your actions. I see that you drive a little fast, but otherwise you have no history of breaking the law. She shuffled papers on her desk, a wooden platform made of light polished wood that John couldn't identify. It was neither oak nor pine. She looked at him standing in front of her. Do you have any evidence? Is there anything you want to say that would mitigate your punishment? Well, Your Honor, I'm sorry that my actions brought us all to this place. I'm sorry that I wasted your time. I wish I could tell you that I won't do this again, but I can't promise you that if I catch my wife in. He looked at George. At the crime scene. The judge smiled as George whispered to him, F. Grande Decto. Yes, that's right. F. Grande Decto. I was tempted to hit him again. I promise that I will do everything possible to restrain myself. Mr. Baker, are you working? I was working, Your Honor, but I was fired from my business because of a morals clause. I could have been arrested. I'd like to go back, but it depends on what happens here today. So, Mr. Baker, in the opinion of this court, we have a law-abiding citizen who, due to extreme stress, made the wrong decision. I'm going to set this case as PBJ. Mr. Baker, do you know what that means? Unfortunately, Your Honor, I don't. This means that I don't declare you guilty, but I don't declare you innocent either. I'm giving you probation until trial. This will remain on your record for 5 years. You will essentially be on unsupervised probation for 5 years. If you commit another violent crime in the next 5 years, you will serve the sentence that your future crime deserves, but you will also be sentenced to time for that crime, most likely 5 to 10 years. Do you think you can behave yourself, Mr. Baker? Yes, ma'am, Your Honor. This will help me hold myself together if I ever find myself in this position again. Your lawyer has some papers that you need to sign. You can go. Thank you, ma'am. John turned to leave, took another look at the judge, who smiled at him, and left the room. The lawyers, John and Bob, were sitting at the table. I can't believe it, John. I've never seen her treat anyone so leniently before, Bob said. This is my first time here. How will this affect our plan? How can I protect my business from Maggie? John, we can't just take a chance. Get back to work. If you don't, we may not have a business to protect, Bob advised. I'm going to continue working for the business, Tim. What if I went back to work for Bob like any other employee rather than as a partner? We'll continue to do business, and when this all blows over, Bob can promote me to partner and we'll go back to business as usual. I think this could work. John, let me look at the partnership agreements to see what provisions there are. You haven't been convicted of a crime, and I'm not sure you're still not a partner. We must do this according to the rules. Did she sign the papers? Bob asked. No, not yet. I'm going back to Nassau. I'll work remotely and figure out how to get her to sign the papers. I may go to St. Louis next week or the week after. Are you sure, John, that there is no way back from here? No, I'm over it. I just want to leave. I want to live my life. John walked down the dock of the marina to his boat, looked down, and saw the empty space in the water where Sarah's boat was moored. For a moment, he was overcome with melancholy as he realized that she was gone from his life. He enjoyed sitting and talking with her, and the memories of being on the yacht with her parents were memories he would cherish for the foreseeable future. She was proof that there are good, dedicated women out there. Maggie watched John leave the restaurant, head down, and felt his pain like a stone on her chest. She was breathing hard, her hands were shaking. She wanted to hug him, put her head on his chest, and just hug him tightly. She wanted it all to go away, like it was in the past. She stopped in the middle of the parking lot on her way to her car when she realized it was truly over. She would never be able to hug him again. It was the last time she touched John, the last time she felt his warmth. Tears flowed in a steady stream from under her sunglasses. Mom, really? Are you kidding me? Jimmy asked. Did your dad catch you cheating in your bed? She heard him sigh. Do you know where he is? No, I blamed him and he no longer answers my calls. I think Sid knows where he is, but he won't tell me. Mom, I'm so angry at you. Jimmy, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I did this. I can't understand why I still love you, Mom, but I don't understand how you could do this to Dad. I'm just angry at you. I need to call him. I need to apologize. I just hope he answers my call. He's not in town, Mom. He doesn't want to talk to you, and I think he doesn't want to talk to Jimmy either, Sid said on the next call. Sid, please make him talk to me. Please let him give me another chance. Are you still working with this guy? Yes. What else should I do? I have to pay my bills, mortgage, and for the car. Find yourself another place to work. Mom, unless this guy meant nothing to you and you are not ready to leave this family, if you don't do this, your family will most likely leave you. It's your choice. Sid, why are you so angry? It wasn't me who ruined everything, Mom. It was you. Maggie hung up and sat at the kitchen table with her head in her hands until the sun set and the room went dark. She went into the bedroom and lay in the dark on the lonely bed until she finally fell asleep. She couldn't understand why the whole family was so angry. It was just one small mistake. It didn't mean anything. She hummed the scammer song to herself like an advertisement that couldn't be gotten out of her head. John, the Atlantic crossing was the fifth storm of the relatively calm season. The storm is forecast to intensify and reach hurricane strength by the time it crosses the Virgin Islands. On his route are Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, then he must turn north with the Turks and Caicos to the east of his path and Nassau to the west of his path. It should reach Category 3 or 4 by the time it heads north to threaten the United States. It looks like he has Carolina in his sights at the end of the week. A swing in either direction will impact either Turks and Caicos or Nassau. Residents in these areas are advised to seek shelter from winds approaching 140 miles per hour and storm surges ranging from 4 to 7 feet. John had 2 days to prepare for the storm. He wondered how he would tie the boat and began to look around the pier, noticing other boats more than usual. The slips were empty. John guessed that they had decided to take their boats back to the U.S. for safekeeping. There would be problems with the remaining boats. He grabbed the extra ropes he had on board and began tying the boats. It was a struggle to achieve two opposing goals. The lines had to be tight enough to prevent boats from hitting the docks but loose enough to survive the storm surge. Workers from the pier met him at the dock. "Hey, guy, look. What are you doing?" "Hey, I'm trying to secure these boats before the storm. I just need more ropes. A boat would also help. Why do you need a boat? I want to stretch a rope from my boat to the other side so that it does not dock. I would also like to extend ropes to these boats to keep them away from the pier. Give me some more ropes, I'll be back soon. Hey, guy, what's your name? My name is John. What's yours? Jose. I think that means John in Spanish. He smiled at John, and John smiled back. I think you're right. They shook hands, and Jose ran off, bringing 5 more men. When he returned with a wheelbarrow full of ropes, both old and new, still with tags, the boats were moored for a day and a half. The sky was clear blue, there was no wind, but waves could already be heard from the shore nearby. Senor John, where will you stay during the storm? I don't know, Jose. I hope I can find a concrete building nearby. I was going to try to get a room at one of the resorts. You will stay with me and my family. It's safe. We've had many hurricanes and have never been damaged. It's not big, but it's okay. You will see. You'll stay with us. No, Jose, thank you, but I don't want to inconvenience you and your family, although I really appreciate it. What does this mean, Elder John? To disturb, to infuriate, to complicate? Jose smiled his crooked smile. You have nothing to worry about. You will stay with us. He nodded his head, and everything was decided. All right, we're going. Get ready to go home. John walked into Jose's house, almost a cabin made of cinder blocks with a tin roof, but they drove up a mountain to get there. John found this comforting. It was dark inside, but clean, tight, and tidy. The house was a rectangular structure with a large room occupying the entire width of the building. In front of it, the rest of the house was covered with a beaded curtain. John heard a woman's voice from behind the curtain. The tone of her voice told John that she, whoever she was angry. Jose rolled his eyes and walked through the curtain. John stood there undecided. He heard a conversation in a language he did not understand, starting loudly, then dying down, and Jose appeared from behind the curtain, followed by a beautiful Latina of about 30. She had long dark hair, a curvaceous figure, and floated on the floor rather than walked. She extended her hand, and John shook it. Her skin was soft, but her fingers were calloused. You're Jose's new friend, aren't you? She spoke with a strong Spanish accent and broken English. Yes, ma'am. Mom, I'm here too. He looked at the windows. You'll stay for the storm, right? Yes, ma'am, if you don't mind. This is good. Thank you, Mom. You're working, I'm cooking. John followed Jose out. Jose had pieces of corrugated tin that fit each window. John held them in place while Jose screwed the screws into the holes that looked like they had been used before. While they were working, neighbors began to show up and help. When they finished Jose's house, they moved on to the house next door and then the house next door to that one. The sky darkened, and the first thunderclouds began to gather. John was so busy helping that he never had time to call the boys or worry about his boat. He did everything he could to give his boat the best chance to survive the storm, as well as the boats in the marina and the houses in the neighborhood. When it started to rain, everyone stood up. Everyone shook John's hand, saying gracias. He understood but didn't really know what it meant. One of the men paused for a moment while the others got ready and was the last to approach John before he left. Thank you, Senior John, for helping us today. You're a friend, aren't you? He smiled and shook John's hand. See, we are friends. Welcome, sir. John smiled and bowed slightly. A storm broke out, not as bad as predicted, but terrible nonetheless. The power went out while John was sleeping on the couch, and Hermosa stepped out from behind the curtain into the living room. The wind roared, making it difficult for John to hear her. She pointed to the sofa, and John sat up and moved over. He smiled at her as she sat down. He put his arm around her shoulders, so small and fragile, and she pressed herself against him. When the thunder struck, she jumped, and he knew she was terrified. They sat there for several hours. Her breathing became even, and he realized she had fallen asleep. When the roar of the wind began to subside, he too fell asleep. He woke up when she jumped up and stood up almost as quickly. She looked at him with an expression he could not understand, part anger, part kindness, a lot of shyness. Her straight hair was disheveled and hung over one eye. She was stunningly beautiful. Jose came out from behind the curtain, looked at them both, shrugged his shoulders, and said, "¿Qué pasa?" She launched into a long speech that he really wanted to understand. She was animated, her hands moving in the air, but he did not understand a word. He looked at Jose, waiting for an explanation. "She says you helped her weather the storm. She was afraid, and you held her. She also said that you are a true gentleman, but I'm not sure if that makes her happy or angry. Women, you can't understand them, can you?" "I can't, that's for sure." "Jose, are you ready to go to the pier? I really need to check on things down there." Hermosa left the room. "I think she's preparing breakfast. Are you hungry, Senor John? We'll sit on the porch, right?" John and Jose carried 2 chairs out onto the porch, opened them, and sat down. John watched as the neighborhood came to life, fallen branches being dragged to the side of the road and removed from in front of doors. Hermosa brought each of them a plate of scrambled eggs with hot salsa and small slices of spiced beef. It was the most delicious thing John had ever eaten. John and Jose pulled fallen palm leaves from Jose's ancient Toyota pickup truck and prepared to leave. John reached out to shake Hermosa's hand, but she hugged him. With a strong Spanish accent, she said, "Thank you, John." John bowed his head, climbed into the truck, and held on. The ride was fast, and Jose jerked the steering wheel from side to side to avoid fallen branches and parts of houses that littered the street. When they got to the dock, they found that one boat had swamped another in the parking lot, but John's boat had made it through the storm fine, along with the other boats. Jose's crew slowly arrived and worked to get the boat into the boat dock. Jose looked at John and said, "Well, thank you, Senor, for your help in preparation. We did a good job. I expected the worst. Jose, what are we going to do with the sunken boat?" "We will. Will you help?" "Of course, Jose. Do you have airbags, slings, a compressor?" "Let's see, amigo." In the barn, they found everything they needed. John selected the 4 medium packs and looked at the compressor. Obviously, he had doubts. "Looks like crap, amigo, but it works. You'll see." John helped install the airbags, reaching into the water to run straps under the sunken boat. He asked Jose to turn on the compressor and coughed as the ancient gasoline engine started up with a blue cloud that grew as it ran. When inflated, the air cushions lifted the boat to such an extent that the gunnels were directly above the water and the upper deck of the 40-foot sailboat was level. Jose found a gas pump, and they sat in companionable silence as the pump worked, watching the water level in the boat slowly drop and the boat rise out of the water. They pulled out the skiff and, as a team, removed the excess ropes from the boats they had secured before the storm. By nightfall, the pier was in fairly good condition. "Senor John, thank you." John extended his hand, and Jose pulled him in for a hug. "Will you come with me?" he asked, raising his eyebrows questioningly. "Thank you, Jose, but I'll stay on my boat." "Please tell Hermosa thank you for everything." John turned on the generator and charged his phone. As soon as it had enough charge to turn on, it began to beep. He received several messages from Sid, 2 from Jimmy, and a message from Maggie. He also had a message from a number he didn't recognize. "John, I know you weren't expecting to hear from me. I heard about the storm and wanted to make sure you and the boat were okay. I would be glad to hear an answer from you. Sarah." After making sure Sid was okay, he called Jim. "Hey, I saw you called." "Yes, Dad. Sid told me where you are. He was terribly worried about you." "Dad, I'm so sorry. Mom told me what happened. I'm sorry I blamed you." "It's okay, Jim. I told you not to take sides until you know the whole story." "I know, Dad. Can you forgive her for family?" "Jim, I can't. She broke my trust. I won't be able to do my job that requires traveling, wondering who she is with this time. Every time I travel, I want it so much, but I just can't." "Maggie? Oh my God, Becky, he's there on the boat. I hope he's okay." "Maggie, I'm sure he's fine. He knows what to do to be safe. If anyone can get through this, it's John. What are you going to do with it?" There was a knock on the door, and Maggie answered. "Are you Margaret Baker?" "Yes." "Can I see your ID?" "Oh my God, will I be served?" Becky asked. He's divorcing me, Maggie said, tears streaming down her cheeks. You've been served, ma'am. I'm sorry. Maggie took the envelope and tore it open. She sank onto the sofa and whispered, Please, God, no. I lost him. I'm so sorry. It was just one time. It didn't mean anything. Maggie, I'm so sorry, but it really meant something to John. 2 days after the storm, John sat on the deck with pieces of the pump in his hands under the bright sun. What are you doing? I'm fixing the pump. Is this a living well pump? John looked up and saw Sarah wearing a pink and white striped shirt. Sarah, what are you doing here? He stood up and walked to the side of the boat near where it was parked on the dock. I heard you had a storm here. I wrote to you but never received an answer. Can I come on board, please? Sorry, let me grab a chair. Where are you staying? I'm so glad to see you. I don't know where to stay yet. The hotels aren't all open yet, but I think there aren't too many people here now. I'm sure I can find a room. I came here straight from the airport. I'm sorry, John, that was stupid. What do you mean, stupid? I thought you and I. Oh, damn, I don't know what I thought. I decided that it was all over, that I would do this, that I would never see you again, and then the storm hit. I watched the coverage like a football match. I couldn't stand the idea that you needed help. Sorry, John, I shouldn't have come. I mean, hell, you've never even kissed me. Sarah, I don't know what to say. I'm not even divorced yet. Don't get me wrong. The time we spent together was special. You are an amazing woman. Let me think of something, set you up for the night, and see what happens. Jose will help us. It's okay, John. A tear slowly rolled down her cheek. I'll just get back to the airport. I have to go. Let's talk to Jose first. Hold on tight. John leaned down and kissed the top of her head as he went to find Jose. The next week, John and Sarah fished, sailed, relaxed on the beach, and basically spent another week in the sun getting to know each other. They flew to the mainland together when John went to St. Louis and spoke frequently on the phone. In the months that followed, John rented a house on the island and set up an office for himself. He agreed with Bob that he would come to the office for a few days every month and travel directly to clients from Nassau. Bob promoted John to shareholder, and they set up an office working on projects in the islands, which grew to 5 engineers plus support staff. Maggie agreed to the terms of the divorce. She kept the house in which the boys grew up, and the liquid assets were divided equally. Maggie sued the law firm for harassment, and as she now called him, he was fired. He had difficulty finding a new job and soon left the area. His claim against John was dismissed in its entirety. John received compensation from the firm but set aside the amount for the grandchildren he hoped would arrive soon. Sarah and Maggie met on a sunny day when Sid, Kristen, Jim, and Courtney came to visit. John sat on the porch of his rented bungalow with his first grandchild on his lap in a worn but durable rocking chair. Maggie stood at the foot of the steps leading to the porch and watched John play with the baby. John, I thought we were going to do this together. God, I'm so sorry, but it really didn't mean anything to me. Maggie, it meant a lot to me. This meant that nothing we shared had any meaning to you. It meant that family trust, all the morals we taught the boys, meant nothing to you. It was something I couldn't forget. It killed my trust and broke my heart. I had to move on or die. It was all so simple. Hey, baby, Sarah said, backing toward the door with a tray containing iced tea for John. She stopped and looked at Maggie, then turned and looked at John, then looked at Maggie again and said, You are as beautiful as John said. I'm Sarah. Maggie's shoulders sagged, and a tear rolled down her cheek. I hope we can become friends, Sarah said, holding out her hand for a handshake. Hi, Sarah. I hope so too. Take good care of him. He deserves it. You are a very lucky woman.